Nearly as long as there's been a city of Papillion, the Papillion Times has been there to cover its growth. Opening in 1874, it survived the flooding of Papio Creek, multiple moves, and changes in ownership.
Well, my mother died when I was about, 5, I guess, 4 or 5. And so my dad, when I wasn't in school, I usually was in the Times office.
Jack and his brothers took over running the Papillion Times in 1949, when his father, George Miller, died of a heart attack. The brothers operated it until they sold it to the Omaha World Herald in 1980. All told, the family owned the paper for 77 years. The name Papillion Times remained until recently, when it was consolidated under the banner of the Sarpy County Times.
It's sad. It's really sad that, our local hometown papers are consolidating. It's a sign of the times. It's a national epidemic where hometown newspapers that carry local news that may not be found other places are folding or doing what they can to stay afloat. Times receipt from 1894.
Sarpy County Museum Director Ben Justman says between some old microfiche copies from the late 1800s and hundreds of bounded editions, the history of the Papillion Times remains intact.
Kind of that nostalgia aspect connected to them, almost like a treasure map in a lot of ways, and it is. It's a treasure map for Papillion's history.
1934.
For Jack Miller, he has some 80 years of memories to fall back on, but he will miss the name.
Inserts. I'll miss Papillion Times. That's our family. We'd have a little more news or something. We printed a supplement. It was just a single sheet. And we had a folding machine. You'd feed these into each newspaper as they come off the folder. That was kind of my job.
Back then, the Papillion Times was the place of record for everything happening in and around the Sarpy County Courthouse, covering the big and small stories of the city.
But the newspaper was kind of identified the town. We had a lady in Springfield and one in Gretna. And they tell you that Mr. and Mrs. had Sunday dinner with their neighbor or their family or something. And people, if you didn't have that in there, or if you spelled their names wrong, you could bet there'd be a phone call Monday morning.
Even during World War II, the Times never missed an edition, even with the paper shortage.
You would buy what they called ready print, and the sheets were all printed with national news of the war, World War II. And I think it had a cartoon or two in there too. And then we would print the other side of it with local news and everything. And that's about the only way you could get newspaper get the paper.
You have your World War II local stories, people enlisting, Red Cross drives, and then you'll turn the page and you'll see the national news of what's going on in Europe and Asia.
The banner for the Sarpy County Times includes the different areas of coverage, from Papillion through Bellevue, La Vista, Gretna, and Springfield. And editor Scott Stewart wants to make it clear the coverage you found in the Papillion Times will continue in the Sarpy County Times.
Really, I think the Sarpy County Times will be a very similar product. It'll just be expanded. The first couple papers we've had have had 10 pages of news. That has not always been the case with the prior paper. So I think if people continue to take the paper, if they check it out for the first time, they'll see something that looks very familiar. It just has some other communities in it, some other stories that they might find interesting.
Ben says that's important. But still, change is never easy.
Working under one masthead will at least keep the local journalism scene alive, but it's rough, especially for the Papillion Times, which is the oldest continuous business in Sarpy County, established in 1874.
For Papillion Now, I'm Michael Severe.